and welcome to healthyhouseplants.com, where we teach you all about gardening in the great indoors. If you'd like to support our show, please use our Amazon affiliate link below. Today's video is about fertilizer burn, what it is and how it can harm your houseplants and how to avoid it. So almost anything can be poisonous if you use too much of it, use a lot of it. That's definitely the case for fertilizer. A lot of times what happens is people think, well, you know, I'll just do a little extra because that'll make the plant grow even better and faster and bigger. Please don't. There are instructions on fertilizer bottles and fertilizer bags and that sort of thing for a reason, because too much fertilizer is going to burn your houseplant foliage, it's going to burn roots, and it could even kill plants. So be really careful about that. Follow the directions carefully. I even suggest a lot of times to err on the side of half strength of what's recommended so that you can make sure that you don't have issues with fertilizer burn. So fertilizer burn is damage that is created on plants, leaves as mentioned, on the roots as well. And it can be very detrimental for the plant besides not looking too good here. So one symptom of fertilizer burn is brown leaf tips. And especially if it goes down, it goes quite a bit like that. It tends to happen a lot more on strappy foliage, long strappy foliage, like on dracaenas. This is a dracaena here. So what happens is the plant gets too much fertilizer. It can't cycle it out, and it ends up trying to, but then it gets caught at the end of a leaf, and then it will cause the leaf tip burn. It will also cause burn in the middle of plants, so in the center of plants. Going to show you a little bit more closely on this coleus here, so you can see a little bit there, that browning there, and on this leaf as well. So that can be a sign of fertilizer burn. I'm not real sure how this plant got fertilizer burn. I think what happened was some was spilled on the leaves. So that's another thing to keep in mind. You have very tender leaves like on this coleus. When you're fertilizing, be careful not to fertilize the foliage, just fertilize the soil itself. So that is another a possibility as well. Okay, so as mentioned, what happens with this fertilizer? So what happens when you put too much fertilizer in is the plant, as mentioned, it can't cycle it out. It's way too much for it to use. So it tries to dispel the extra that you give it, and it ends up on the leaf tip burn like this, and maybe burning here, especially if it was from the root system thing. I think more like this is like I'm mentioning was spilled on it by accident, but that is another thing to keep in mind as well. Also, it will cause the roots to die back. When the roots die back, that's really bad, because what happens is you end up having less roots in the soil, too much soil. That can lead to root rot. I have a playlist on root rot and how to get rid of it if you think your plant may have it. I'll put a link for that below, as well as any other videos I mentioned in this video. So the fertilizer burn, like I mentioned, bad for the roots, bad for the foliage itself, bad for the plant in general. It will cause the plant to slow down growth as well, because the plant is struggling to get rid of these excess nutrients. And I'm going to tell you in a little bit what to do with the excess nutrients if you feel that you have over fertilized your house plant. But a little bit more on the symptoms. So yellowing streaks on the leaves, withered leaves, those are two signs. As mentioned, brown leaves, brown leaf tips, yellowing leaves. So say you fertilize, and within 2-3 weeks or so, you start to see a lot of yellowing leaves and leaf drop, and you know you're fertilizing, you're watering the same as usual, you've got it in the same light, you haven't made any other changes except for that fertilizer, then very good chance it is a case of fertilizer burn. Basically what happens is the plant, the leaves become dehydrated from trying to expel that excess fertilizer. It also, fertilizers are high in salts, so the salt will build up. Another indication if you see a salt buildup after you've fertilized, and also these other symptoms as well. So those are some signs. Stunted root growth, as I mentioned, you would have to obviously take the plant out, but maybe you repotted a while back and maybe you're wondering what's going on down there, and you take it out and you see less roots. That will let you know that there is a problem with the roots, obviously, because there's less roots, there should be more roots. And if you've been fertilizing, you may very well have created that toxic salt buildup in the soil, and it's time to rectify that. So, what to do if you think you have a case of fertilizer burn in your house plants? What you want to do is you want to get them out of that soil as soon as possible. You do want to gently rinse the roots in tepid to warm water, and then you want to repot in new soil, and soil that is water retentive yet also drains well. I'll put some links below for for such soils. Now, question would be, should I fertilize when I repot a plant that is fertilizer burned? I would say no. Wait a while to fertilize that plant. The plant is still, even though you've changed the soil and put it in fresh soil that no longer is full of fertilizer, the plant still has fertilizer within its system. So it definitely doesn't need to be getting any more fertilizer at this time. So go ahead and repot. I do have a repotting playlist, shows you from start to finish how to repot, from choosing the pot, when to repot, do I need to repot, all the way to repotting. So wait. Once you repot, as mentioned, wait a while, and I would wait until the plant has grown at least 3, 4, 5 inches before you fertilize. Remember, a good potting soil will already have some fertilizer in it, and so that's another thing to keep in mind. You don't want to add extra at this point, okay? Then at that point, go ahead and start fertilizing. Now, when you do fertilize, please use organic fertilizers. Organic fertilizers are very mild. You will have much less of a chance of creating fertilizer burn in your houseplants if you just use organic fertilizers. Of course, as I mentioned, you can have too much of a good thing any way around, but fertilizer burn is much less common when you use organic fertilizers. This is my product, the Green Gourmet Houseplant Food. There's also, this is a great one. I love Epsoma's. This is their indoor formula, great one for plants. I also really like this Perky plant. This is a powder, but it's water soluble, so you just put it in the water as directed, as directed, as directed. This is a granular, so you would need to work it into the soil. There is a way to do that once, even after you repot it. I'll put a link for that as well, how to add granular fertilizer to already potted plants, okay? So, one indicator of an organic, besides the fact that it says organic, a fertilizer, is that it will be a low NPK ratio, and the NPK is nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. And that, so that what you want to look for is 555, 444, 342, 7, there's not a lot in the 7 range, but basically anything below 10, 10, 10, 10, 8, 10, things are generally speaking are organic fertilizers. And those numbers, keep in mind, those numbers are an indicator of the nutrient content. So if you've got a 30, 30, 30, you've got a high nutrient content, high risk of fertilizer burn with that. That would be a chemical fertilizer. So the lower you can go, the less chance you're going to have of burning your plants in the future. So keep that in mind. Look for that type of fertilizer. And look for any of these symptoms of fertilizer burn. As mentioned, the sooner you can get the plant out of the salty, basically salty fertilizer heavy soil and into a soil that is fresh, the better. Thank you for stopping by today. Please leave any comments about any indoor gardening tutorials you'd like to see. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, and share this video. And please check the bell if you'd like to be notified when new videos are released.